to part 4 of Jamie and Claire. I'm working in the Outlander coloring book again today because, of course, I'm going to move forward with my coloring page, namely this one here. And today I'm going to finish Claire's dress and her bandages here that she's holding, as well as the bowl on the table. And I'm going to talk to you about slight little differences in one major tone, in this case brown, the color brown, and well, where I work with reflection and light when it comes to water and other reflecting surfaces. So hang in there and join me. Let's get to coloring. Time for Mrs. Randall's skirt and sleeves to be colored. Last week I did already choose the brown tones that I want to use and the shading color, a blue and a black, that I want to use for the dress. And I'm just going to decide which ones I want to have where. If I have to be in frame though. This brown and this brown are going to be my brown tones, and I think I want the do I want the chocolate on the sleeves or on, yeah, no, I want the chocolate on, so a little more reddish brown. I want that on the skirt, and I want the, or do I? Damn, now I have to, let me see. This one stands a little more back into the background. So I will probably use it quite a bit on the surroundings. So yeah, I want the bigger thing, so the skirt in this reddish brown, and I want this greenish brown. It's like an umber. I want to have that on the sleeves. I'm gonna zoom you in a bit so that you can see a bit better when it comes to details in coloring. Nope, wrong direction. This way around. Let's see. Yeah, that should work frame-wise. So here we go. Excuse me, I'm still coughing because I'm still recording on the same day that I recorded the previous video, but I have to clean out my sharpener to be able to sharpen my pencils some more. And I'm using a dark blue here to shade today because it makes for a very nice rich effect that is not as easily achievable with black as a shading color. Let me get a cough drop so that I have a chance to not cough in every sentence. Of course I have to throw it away because that's what you do. But here we go. Let's get to coloring. So I'm gonna start with this sleeve here. I'm just going to give it a slight, very light layer. Usually I do that with the lightest color. This time I'm not. I'm gonna take the medium color. I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter tone, but this is supposed to be wool or cotton, so reflection is not really happening. However, some fabric might react a tiny little bit to light, so I'm going to have a bit of this very light brown here where the light hits it, as well as the fire. So the fire comes from the right hand side. If you remember, there's the fireplace. So there's a little bit of a light happening here, but just a bit, because Jamie's arm is blocking parts of that. Okay, now going back to my mid-tone, that is also going to be my dark tone. Going to go in and bring all of that together. Now I can bring in the dark blue to use that for a bit of shading. Always have to see that I am in frame. When I am zoomed in so much, it's so easy to accidentally get out of frame. There's the dark, and now I'm going over everything again with my brown, my dark brown here. And the secret is to layer and layer and layer, and that will give you a very rich looking picture. Rich in the sense of the colors won't look too flat. There will be dimension, contrast, interest, all of those important words. They will be there on the page if you use a couple of shades of colors and layer them as much as you can. Adding a little bit of black here for those lines, and then again dark brown. There we go. Part number one. Now I can go in with the dark tones here where I want to shade. I already have the light in here, so I can go actually a little more heavily on the sleeve here. And again, I'm going in with the dark blue underneath that ripped part here. It will cast a shadow. There's also a couple of wrinkles here on the fabric that usually indicate darker spots. Going on top with the brown, because I don't want it to look blue, but the blue will make for a nice shadow with the brown. It will almost make it look gray. And when I bring in the black in a minute, it will just not have the shadow look so flat. That's why I'm bringing in the blue. And the dark blue is a warm blue is a nice shading color for a cold brown. And for a warm brown, you could take a bit of a cold blue or a grayish blue that makes for very nice non-flatness in the fabric. And yes, that's a word. If it wasn't a word before, it's a word now. There, I said it. It's a word. Helping with the wrinkles here, not to lose them. Going to put in a bit of black and then bring in the brown. Just going to color on the right hand side of the fabric for now. There will be a shadow here, so I'm going to bring that in a minute. Here where the firelight hits, I'm also going to bring in a little bit of that, a little more of that light brown. Now, on this side here, there is a shadow because the torso of Claire is shading her arm. The window from behind is not gonna bring a lot of light, just a smidge, and the fireplace is also not lighting up this particular area here. So here goes the dark. It's just a little bit of a tiny bit of a light here in the back, but just so little that you can actually disregard it in the main section of coloring here. It's mostly shaded. So I'm bringing in the blue on top with a very light touch, shading this. Bringing a bit of the black on top. Very softly darken it up more and more and more. To check with the without the glare. Yep, that looks good. Just a little more here. And then I can have the final layer of the dark brown on the sleeve. Emphasizing a few of the wrinkles here, make them a little more visible, a little more distinguished. There we go, sleeve number 1. Now I'm moving on to the other sleeve over here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the same color combo. Now, this sleeve here is pretty much all in the shadow. The window from the back here doesn't hit that sleeve. The candle does have a little bit of a light here on that section, and the fire is also having a little bit of a light section here, but very little only in comparison to the other sleeve, because the main source, the daylight from the window, is not there. There's a curtain here, and Claire seems to be in that curtain's shadow. The curtain is casting a shadow there. So I'm bringing in my brown. Where the shadow is going to be, there's a little bit of a light here from the firelight and the candle. But back here, for example, there's not going to be any light, so I'm going in with the brown, putting the blue on top. So this is just very dark. A little bit of black as well. And then again, some more brown. I'm going in here, following the folds of the fabric. Very softly adding another layer before I go in with blue and black. Starting with the blue up here. Working out those folds and wrinkles in the fabric. Same here on the armpit. And then bringing in a general soft shading from the left-hand side where there is the fewest light, the littlest amount of light. Going back to the brown, layering that on top.
Also going very softly with this dark brown over the light brown section now, to bring the two parts of the sleeve together. And a little bit of the lighter shade here. And then darkening up the lines here, the wrinkles, the folds, the part where the shirt goes underneath the bodice. Also here on the armpits, that's a dark section underneath, because the arm is casting a shadow. And then with a very light touch, having a general shadow here on the left, added with the black pencil. Again, going in with the brown, smoothing everything out. This should hopefully be the final layer of the brown, of the dark brown, I mean. We'll probably have a little more of the light brown added to the page. And like I had thought, just a smidge of the light brown should finish this section. Checking without glare if my values are correct. Nope, I'm a little too light. So I have to add a bit more of the black here. And also here. Check again. Almost. Adding a bit more on those folds here. Yeah, now I got it. So these are the sleeves. Now I can move on to the skirt. And for that I'm using a different kind of a brown. But I'm also gonna have the other dark brown in there. First I'm gonna give it a very light layer of the chocolate brown though. To check where the bandages are and where the skirt is. So I find it really helps to section off the part that I want to color with one layer of a color here, just to easily see when it comes to intensifying those colors and shading the skirt in this case, that I am still on the right part. So I have to only care about where I put the color once here on this first layer, and then I can trust my self with where I put the colors, and I just have to take care of shading and lighting and such, and I don't have to think about, oh, is this part of a skirt or is this a bandage? No, if it has a brown layer on there, it's a skirt. I don't have to think about that anymore. That is another reason why I like to have one color as one layer, just to section off an object that I want to color, in this case here, Claire's skirt. I hope that makes sense. At least it does make sense in my way of coloring in my head. So there are all the skirt parts. Now I need a sip of tea, and while I drink I can look, okay, where's the light coming from? There's a little bit of light here. Though, no, there's probably the bed in the background, so no, that would probably be shaded, maybe. Just a glimpse of a highlight, maybe. Main highlight will be here in the lower part, in this part between Jamie's arm and his torso. The light comes through, so there's gonna be a light here, a highlight. The lamp, the lamp, oh gosh, the candle will cast a bit of a highlight here on the folds, but very little only. Most parts again are going to be in the shadow, because Jamie is casting a shadow, Claire herself is casting a shadow, the curtain is casting a shadow, and there's only very little, very tiny light sources, so there's not going to be any major harsh highlights here. However, I'm going to draw them in just to not forget. So there's a little bit of a highlight here. Then there's a bit of a highlight here on her skirt. And then there's the highlight here on the knee. So something like this. The rest is going to be in the dark. Now I'm going back with my chocolate brown and I'm bringing in the second layer. And then I'm bringing in the other brown, the greenish brown that I used for the sleeves. And I'm going to bring that in as well for a bit of a darker tone, just a little richer than only the chocolate brown maybe. Bringing in the blue here on these folds for shading, for the dark shadows. And a bit of a black as well. A little bit more of the highlight. And then I can go in and bring the chocolate brown back and filling things up here. Make it smooth with mainly circle or ellipse shaped coloring paths. And I need a bit more of the other brown. And more chocolate. And then I can go on to the other fold here, again putting in the chocolate, putting in the other brown to have a little more richness going on, putting in a bit of a black, and more of the chocolate. Then I can go with this part here where the other light is happening. So first I'm going to sharpen my pencil. My chocolate pencil, and I'm bringing in a layer of the chocolate brown. Also bringing it in from the lower knee, the seam here. But again, I'm having a light touch so that I can layer more and more color on top and have it very rich looking then. Going in with my light brown, a bit more of the highlight color there. And then, sorry, going in with the greenish brown. So Jamie is shading the skirt a lot with his body. And from the left-hand side, there's also darker parts coming in. There's not enough light from the fireplace to light up the whole skirt and make it honey colored. There's quite a bit of shadow going on here. And then on these folds here, of course, there's also going to be a bit of a darker tone. And then I can go in with blue, shade even more. So again, Jamie's casting a shadow onto the skirt. There's going to be a darker shadow here. And of course, also here where the light's not getting that far. Moving on to black. And now I have to be a little more careful, because this is really just the darkest darks and the emphasizing of the folds so that they stand out. And then there's a little very dark shadow back here. Now I can bring in the chocolate brown again and go over everything, bring everything together, blend all the colors. Also bringing in another light layer here on the highlight zone. But I'm going to have a little bit of the light brown on top in a minute. But first, there has to be a little more of the chocolate brown, because it is a chocolate brown skirt after all. Now a little more of the highlight, just a bit here where the firelight hits. And I'm gonna extend that shadow over here. He's casting enough shadow with his arm, so I can extend the shadow a bit. Just a little bit though, not too much. Yeah, okay, eraser! Got into the bandage. I don't want to have any color on it yet, because I want to color it in the same cold grays that I used on Jamie's bandage there. There we go. So there's the next part of the skirt done. On to the folds around the bandage and the bowl and the leaves here. I didn't put down a highlight, so I'm just going in with the chocolate brown. I don't have to have the light brown in this particular case here. Don't have to put that in. So I'm just going to add another layer of the chocolate brown. And now the other greenish brown on top. I'm not gonna color the water now. I will color it later when I color the bowl and such. The water won't be blue. It's transparent, so it will have color of the skirt there. But I don't want to work on that now. I just want to work on the skirt. Hence, I'm not taking care of the water droplets and such for now, just disregarding it. Not coloring all of this section with the greenish brown, because here we go towards the light again. So I want a bit of richness and contrast there. So I'm leaving a part where just the chocolate brown will happen. But I'm shading just in a way as if the bandage weren't here. I would go a little further here with the blue, so I'm just doing that, pretending the bandage isn't there, and I'm just continuing the shading from this section here, adding a bit of shadow here. We're still Jamie and also Claire herself are casting shadows on her skirt. And I'm going to bring in a bit of a black here for the dark parts. Emphasizing a little bit of a shadow here, making it just a little bit stronger underneath the bandage, but not where the water is, just to the left and to the right of it. A little dark around the bowl, and then on this side here, and I think that should already be enough of the shadow if I put a little more of the cacao or chocolate brown on top, which I'm doing here. And over here, I'm of course also gonna have a bit more of the chocolate brown. Okay, almost there. Just smoothing things out a bit more. I need a little darker here, just a bit. So I'm pulling in a little more of the black. Let me look at the values without glare. Yeah, getting there. But I need a little more here. A little more darker. Yeah. So since these two bits here are connected and there's only this very small bit of bandage separating them, I have to, of course, also look at the previously colored part here once I'm done with this section of the skirt, as they're, well, right next to each other, so they have exactly the same shade of things. Going to have a little bit of a black here around the bowl, just to set it apart from the skirt a bit more, just a little bit. So There's almost the whole skirt, but there's a little more still to be colored, and there's a highlight again here. So the candle is lighting up the skirt bit. So let me be in frame. Yeah, that should be fine. So I'm going in with the chocolate brown, and I'm just adding a second layer, but I think I need to sharpen my pencil once more. Bringing in another full layer of the chocolate brown. I'm also going over the light brown here. There's almost honeycomb brown. But again, I'm having such a light touch that I still can see where that light brown is. So I have no trouble bringing it back in a minute here. Now, there's the highlight. And now I can, ooh, don't throw away the pencils. I can bring in the greenish brown. So the darkening process begins. And I'm going around the honeycomb, light brown, caramel looking part of the skirt. Just adding a little bit to the folds, but just to the lines, not in between. I'm feathering in the greenish brown into the honeycomb brown here to darken things up a bit. I'm not covering the whole section with this greenish brown because, again, this is a chocolate brown skirt, and just the shadows make parts of the skirt look kind of greenish brown or dirty brown. It's just because of the light, or the, well, absence of light actually. So all of this here is in the dark. And the very darks are here. Of course, around the bandage, we see that. And also down here. And up here, there's also a bit of a darker shade here on these folds. Not too dark though, since we're right in front of the candlelight, but still There's a little bit of a shadow going on in those fabric folds. Going on top with black. On some of the darkest parts here. Or just where I want to have a bit of contrast. I'm going to have a little darker here on these fabric folds. And then of course down here there's also a bit of a darker shadow, as the candlelight does not reach this part, nor does the window, and also the fireplace is not lighting up that part of the skirt here, so I can go reasonably dark with this particular section here. A little more of the greenish brown just to feather out the black. And then going in with the chocolate brown. Going on top of the honeycomb colored part with the dark brown. Making it a little more chocolatey. Working a bit more on the shadows here of those folds. And just a little more honey color here. Now I have to check if my values are correct without the glare. A little darker, just a smidge darker here. I really can't recommend enough to just squint or cross your eyes for a second so that you just see blurry, very blurry, and get rid of all the details on the page and just have blocks of color that you see so that you can determine easily and within a split second actually if your darks are dark enough or your lights are light enough. Almost there. Just extending a bit more of the chocolate brown into the honeycomb. There we go. That's more like it. Yep. Now I can have this, oopsie, final little bit here of the skirt colored, and that is a very dark part. None of the light sources will hit it. So I'm going to have both of the browns, the blue. Oh, there's more skirt here. Forgot that part. But it's also in the very dark section of the skirt, so that is quite easily colored and remedied that I forgot this section here, so just put a little black on top. Little more of the chocolate brown. And now I can clean up with my eraser here. Clean up the parts where I definitely don't want any chocolate or blue to go. Or where I'm not sure what colors are going to go where. So I'm just cleaning up to keep things, well, colorable the way I want it without having to cover up the pigment that just went over a certain area. So this is the skirt. Let me zoom out a tiny little bit to show you. There we go. This is Claire in the complete brown and yellow glory. Next I would go for, what do I want to go for? I think I will go for the bandage and the bowl. Work a little more with the foreground. Let's see. So for the bandages I would go with the same color combo then that I already used on the bandages here. So there would be a gray, a dark gray. Let's see, I have to check which colors I used, which grays I used for him. Definitely the white. Let's see which gray I used. Didn't use the beige, got a little bit of the yellow. So I'm going to use it here as well. I do have the grays, okay. Let's maybe have a little bit of a yellow that will go for the water there. Sorry. I hate this cough. It really bugs me. I might need a little bit of a darker brown or gray or maybe even a black. But for now, this is what I would go for with the bandages. So that one strip actually. So I'm gonna start with a light warm gray. Did I? Yeah, I used kind of a warm gray there on the other one too. So I'm just gonna give it a full layer of the warm gray. The water is see-through, so of course you will see the gray underneath the water droplet. There's more of the bandage, blah, like this and like so. So now I'm going in with a very light touch of the dark gray for these folds here. Just doing the line work here some justice and emphasizing those lines that were drawn in with a little bit of color. Same goes here. And that is not even shading yet, it's just intensifying a bit of a darker gray here on these lines that came with the coloring page. But they will help in the end with shading, of course. So I'm kind of already shading. There we go. Now, I have to check where the light comes from, where light hits. And I need to have a sip of tea, of course. So, the candle, of course, is gonna cast light here in this section. The fire is going to cast light here and a bit here, but most of these parts here are at least in half a shadow, so they're rather dark. What I will do now is add a little bit of the yellow where the light hits from the candle. So that would be here, for example. A little here. Then we do have light here from the fire. And also here. Because again, there's a hole here between the torso and the arm of Jamie, so the light, you can just have a pencil there. It goes through that part. Then there's also a bit of light here. the water is gonna have a little bit of a reflection too. And now I can intensify some of these things with a bit of the yellow ochre, giving it a little more of a brownish tone. And also shading things. For example, here, Claire's hand will cast a bit of a shadow. And it's gonna be a bit here on the drop. A little more here underneath the fingers. It's gonna be a little bit somewhat of a shadow. Same here and here. And of course on the shadow parts here as well. That would be that for the yellows or the brownish tones. Now I can go back to the gray, the dark gray, and shade some more. Example here. And also here on the bottom. And also here. And I'm just going with the line work where there's a curve like this, there's going to be a lighter part, and where there's a curve like this, it's going to be darker. In her hand, again, she's shading quite a bit. So there will be darker sections of the bandages here, where her hand is casting a shadow. Then we do have a little bit of a shadow here on the back side of the bandage, where Jamie and Claire are casting a shadow on it. We can have water droplet also shaded. Then going in to this section here with a heavy shadow. And a little more here, where we have one part of the bandage overlapping the other. And then it is twisted here, so I'm adding a little more. Underneath Claire's hand, there's gonna be a bit of a shadow, even more though than I already colored in. And then here we of course have a little more shadow going on. And just going to blend this out with the lighter gray here where the dark sections are, and then I'm going to bring in white for the lighter bits in between. I'm going to bring in some white to just blend and not add any more color. But I have to take care of the water first. So I'm just bringing in the gray where the dark is. So underneath here. And then a bit of white to blend them out. And then just a smidge of the black. Underneath the water bubble. Now all the rest I can blend quite generously and fast with my white pencil. There we go. And now I can take care of the bowl. Now it could be the finest china and you would maybe have a white white glazing here happening on the inner part, but I think that's not the case. I think this is somewhat of a ceramic bowl, so I'm going to use beige, white, brown for the inner part here. So I'm starting with the beige, going over the water droplet because it will pick up that color. The rim here is gonna be beige as well, as will be the foot. And probably also this section here of the bowl. Now, I'm not going to take care of the water reflection right now. I will just color the bowl. So we have a light shining into the bowl from the candle. So there's light coming from the top, and there's also going to be a little bit of light coming from the right. So I will very lightly shade and give this bowl a little bit of interest. And for that I use this 383. It's a yellow ochre kind of thing. Bringing in the darker tone here at the bottom, where the candlelight won't hit the bowl, and also here from the left, because again we have the firelight coming from the right, so there's a little bit of a lighter tone coming from the right, but here on the left I can go in with that yellow ochre. The warm color here also brings the bowl to the foreground. This is all foreground. Back here I will use cooler shades to push them into the background. But there we go. Going over it with a little more of the beige. And towards the right-hand side, I'm going to bring in the white to just blend and not add any more color, because there's where the major light source is. And then I will bring in these the greenish brown, just add a bit here on the pattern, make it look like there's some engraving on the bowl. Pretty much have an indentation of this flower pattern here. Add a little bit of the same brown also to the foot of the bowl. A little more as a shadow here. Just a bit. Okay. Adding a bit of a darker rim here on the right. And I want this to be a glaze of some sort, a brown one. So I'm taking the light brown, the same brown that I used for the darks in Jamie's skin, and then I'm bringing in the dark brown that I used for those indentations here, and I'm just going to shade things. Oops, don't throw anything away. A little more of the light brown. And a little white for the part where the firelight hits most. Now, in the bowl, there's the water. Let's have the skirt colored though. That part where water is going right behind it. Bringing in the same light brown and a bit of the white. Just to make it visible that it is in front of the skirt. And I'm having the tiniest bit of black here around the drop, just to set it apart from the background, the brown skirt. So there we go. Same goes for excuse me, for the inner part of the bowl. The water is see-through. It's transparent. I'm not thinking there's any blood in here. It's just more of an infusion of leaves for the bandages to clean them up and to have them as sterile as possible, and the leaves or the herbs are just helping. There's no blood in there, I think. So the bowl has the beige tone, and it is see-through. So there's going to be a mixture of white and beige here. And I'm having the beige on the ripples. Where the light hits it, there's gonna be white or a very, very light beige. And where there's no reflection, there's gonna be a little darker beige tone, just like on this part here. So I'm just bringing in the beige for the ripples here. There as well. And then there's going to be a bit of the white here, or light beige. I'm gonna have just a tiny bit of the light brown here behind the drop. Again, just to set the drop apart a bit. A little more of the white here. And a little bit of this light brown for some shadows here. Just a bit, really only very little. Need a little more of the beige. Then I will have a little bit green in there as well because, well, there's leaves. So they have to be colored too. Just gonna shade the leaves here on the bowl. Well, not the leaves, but they cast a shadow. As does the bandage here, it casts a little bit of a shadow. And I'm using a mixture of the light brown and the beige for that. We'll have a bit more of this here and also a bit of the gray, because the bandages and everything, they do reflect the color on the water surface. I'm just adding a little bit of the gray here. Okay, now I have to choose the green. I have to make sure that I don't screw up what pencils I used in this part of the video. I used all of that. I need a green, so these are all the greens that I have, and I'm introducing a new color here. I haven't used any green on my page so far, so I'm going to choose a green that I can repeat in the background somewhere. So I like this one here. Yep, you're gonna be with me. And a bit of a yeah, a bit of a lemon yellow. It's not a perfect lemon yellow, lemon green, lime green. It's not perfect for the shade that I want, but I need to have a bit of a lighter part on some of the leaves where the light hits, and to also not have them look too flat. So I'm using a bit of the lime green. You're swimming here as well. And then I'm going on top with the dark green. So we have a little bit of green reflection here in the water droplet as well. 2 more leaves to go. And then I think once I have this bowl done here, I will end the video because I have about 24 minutes left on my clock. I think that would just be the perfect time to end the video. I'm going to have a bit of green here in the water as well. For one, we have reflections. And this leaf is probably not going to swim on its own, so I guess the stalk is somewhere here. It's submerged, but you still can see it through the water. So, going to bring in a bit of the green there. Just the dark green though, also a little bit of the brown. And a little bit of the white to blend everything out and have a highlight section where the light hits the water. Maybe a bit of a yellow for that too, because it's candlelight after all. Just a little more of a brown here to separate the water line from the ceramic of the bowl. Just a bit. Just a tiny bit. And there you have it. Ouch, I bumped my arm. Great. I think that ends this section of the coloring page. I hope you enjoyed watching along. If you have any questions or comments, as per usual, leave them in the comment section below. I'm going to be back next week and I'm gonna color more on this page, having more background done. Well, a little bit of foreground here, but I'm probably gonna take care of the background. So the fireplace here, for example, the window, get things sorted out there, get them colored. And I hope you enjoyed, like I said. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, want to see more of this and want to be notified whenever I upload a new video, then hit the subscribe button and the bell button. And I'm gonna see you very soon. Have a wonderful week. Take good care. And maybe you got some time to color. If you happen to color along with this page, I would love to see some photos, so you can direct message me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Feel free. I would love to see what you're doing with your color page. Take good care, have fun, and I'm gonna see you. Bye!